The Islamic Republic of Pakistan is facing one of its most severe human rights crises amidst the prevailing political and economic chaos in the country. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, in its latest report, has highlighted the failure of the legislature, judiciary, and the executive in fulfilling their duty to safeguard citizens from political and economic exploitation. The incidents of enforced disappearances, the safety of religious minorities, or lack thereof, and the diminishing rights of women and children have remained a grave cause of concern. Come with us as we discuss the swift decline of human rights in Pakistan. The year 2022 was chaotic and fatal for the people in Pakistan. The devastating floods last monsoon led to extreme poverty, high inflation, medical crises, and unemployment. The country's economy not only took a nosedive, but a political upheaval unfolded following the ousting of former Prime Minister Imran Khan through a no-confidence motion in April of last year. These calamities added to the woes of the people in Pakistan. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, in its almost 300-page annual report, has raised concerns over Pakistan's human rights situation, not only economic and political, but security as well. Terrorism-related incidents in the country claimed 533 lives in 2022. The report hits the government hard for their growing intolerance towards dissenting opinions and free speech, and for the enforced disappearances of political activists and journalists. The report also highlighted custodial torture and sedition charges against political opponents, journalists, and activists.
The reason why enforced disappearances are increasing, or this method is used by the military, again the military is involved in this, is because they do not have a justification for imprisoning people. So they just put them in secret prisons. These are political prisoners, but they have no political representation because they're in secret prisons, and where they're tortured, where they're sometimes even killed.
The instances of enforced disappearances of political activists, journalists, and human rights defenders remains a grave concern for the Human Rights Commission of Pakistan. As per its report, at least 2,210 enforced disappearances cases remained unsolved by the end of 2022. Last year, Punjab reported 57 cases of enforced disappearances, whereas Sindh reported 67 cases. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa reported 202, and in Balochistan, a staggering 257 such cases came to light. The Human Rights Commission is further concerned by the extrajudicial killings of missing persons in the country. It cited an incident in July of 2022 when the Pakistani intelligence agency, the ISI, claimed killing 9 militants in the Ziyarat area of Balochistan. However, after protests by the relatives of these missing persons in Quetta, it emerged that 5 of those killed were forcibly disappeared persons and were not in fact militants.
Pakistan still thinks that these are the people whom I have to suppress and oppress them till I have muscles. So they are using their muscle to control the land. On the other side, the Baloch people are being systematically eliminated, disappeared by force, displaced from their areas, facing extrajudicial killings.
The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan also indicated their concern for the declining Press Freedom Index, as the country ranks 150th amongst 180 countries and territories across the globe. The report cited the journalists and the vernacular press who said that they were still compelled to toe the government line and could not report independently for fear of reprisal by state and non-state actors. People's issues from Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa received negligible coverage in the mainstream media, especially on private TV news channels. This was especially true of issues such as the ongoing conflict between the state and Baloch nationalists, grievous human rights violations such as enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings, poor governance, as well as matters of economic and social concern. As the economic and political situation remains grim in Pakistan, the human rights situation is expected to deteriorate, leaving Pakistani citizens with one more area of despair in their already grim lives. A growingly unstable and volatile Afghanistan is causing worry to the world. Worsening human rights, in particular women's and girls' rights, poverty, hunger, terrorism, and the spread of drug trafficking. There are countless issues that the people of Afghanistan have been facing under the Taliban rule. World leaders under the aegis of the United Nations recently held a closed-door meeting in Doha to reinvigorate international engagement around these key issues and to engage the Taliban government.
The meeting was about developing a common international approach, not about recognition of the de facto Taliban authorities. The participants are worried about the stability of Afghanistan and have expressed those serious concerns. They relate to the persistent presence of terrorist organizations, a risk for the country, the region, and further afield.
The Taliban returned to power in August of 2021, and since then have restricted Afghan women and girls from participating in most areas of public and daily life. Women nationals have also been barred from working with the UN in a country where nearly 29 million people depend on humanitarian assistance. The UN Security Council recently unanimously adopted a resolution condemning the decision, saying that it undermines human rights and humanitarian principles.
The current ban on Afghan women working for the United Nations and national and international NGOs is unacceptable and puts lives in jeopardy.
Antonio Guterres said the situation in Afghanistan was the largest humanitarian crisis in the world today, and that he would meet the Taliban when it was the right moment to do so. According to the United Nations, a record 28.3 million people in Afghanistan are in need of assistance this year, making Afghanistan the world's largest aid operation. The UN is asking for $4.6 billion to fully fund relief efforts this year. The UN humanitarian coordinator warned that Afghanistan was also the world's least well-funded operation, with less than 5% funding pledged so far. Regular Afghans, particularly women and children, remained oppressed under the Taliban. They depend on humanitarian assistance, but any remaining hope they have for a brighter future dwindles the longer the international community leaves them in need.